I want to stick in the NFC. I just gave my power rankings. I had the Packers 2, but number 1, I still had the Seahawks. And that's because they have an MVP right now at quarterback, and that's Russell Wilson. And I want to dive into Russell Wilson's career. Because so far through 3 games, there's been no one better. Historically, there might be no one better right now than what Russell Wilson is playing. Another game, they beat the Cowboys yesterday at home. Russell Wilson engineers a late fourth quarter comeback to give them a touchdown, to give them the lead. Finished the game with 5 touchdowns, 315 yards. So now through 3 games, right? Played the Falcons, played the Patriots, and now he played the Cowboys. 14 touchdown passes through those first 3 games. Broke Patrick Mahomes' record, for most touchdown passes through 3 games. He's the 5th player in NFL history. The first player to ever do it in the first 3 games, but 5th player in NFL history to throw at least 4 touchdown passes in 3 consecutive games. Russell Wilson is the MVP right now. There's no doubt about it. There's no conversation. But that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about how Russell Wilson got here. How we view Russell Wilson right now. Right? I think there's really not much consternation. Patrick Mahomes, if we look at the quarterback rankings, right? If we look at the hierarchy, Patrick Mahomes is number 1. I have Russell Wilson. I think a lot of people have Russell Wilson number 2. If you listen to this show last week, just 7 days ago, on the show on Monday, I talked about the quarterback tiers. Because in the summer, The Athletic, as they do every single year, puts out their quarterback tiers. They talk to 50 coaches and scouts and say, hey, who would you put in tier 1 for a quarterback play and why? Who would you put in tier 2? They had 5 quarterbacks in tier 1, but they also ranked them. They had Pat Mahomes 1, they had Russ 2. I said last week, to me, there's only 2 quarterbacks who belong in tier 1. There's only 2 quarterbacks that I consider right now the elite of the elite, the great of the great. And Aaron Rodgers, I may have to reconsider because he's playing really, really, really well. But I put Pat Mahomes and Russell Wilson. To me, there's a drop-off between everybody else. So now the way we view Russell Wilson right now, as an elite quarterback, as a franchise quarterback, as one of the best in the game, we didn't view him this when he first came into the league back in 2012. We didn't view him this even after the 2 Super Bowl appearances, where they won 1 and lost 1. So in doing so, we really, these last 2.5 years, really started viewing Russell Wilson as elite, as a game changer, as a reason why Seahawks are winning games. And so that career arc he had, that transformation from going from a guy who was just a guy, basically said, hey, don't lose us the game, to now being the reason why teams win the game, or his team wins the game, I should say. The elite of the elite, one of the best quarterbacks to play the game. No one's had a more dramatic transformation, no more dramatic career arc from one to the other right now than Russell Wilson. Again, let's all go back to the start of his career, right? He's drafted in 2012. The Seahawks signed Matt Flynn to that big contract. They thought he was going to be the guy. Russell Wilson beats him out, and the Seahawks start to build, right? They're built on defense. They're built on the running game. You had a Legion of Boom. They go to back-to-back Super Bowls. And what was that philosophy for the Seahawks? What was their recipe for success? Defense and the running game. That was it. Russell Wilson, when he was quarterback, going to back-to-back Super Bowls, during the heyday of the Legion of Boom, he was asked, don't screw it up for us. That's all. You had Richard Sherman, you had Cam Chancellor, you had Earl Thomas, you had all these great defensive players, big personalities, making plays, dominating, just flat out dominating offenses. And they looked at Russell Wilson and say, hey, don't screw it up for us. Don't throw 4 picks where we lose the game 10-7. Don't put us in bad positions where you're throwing picks deep in your own end or not getting the offense going. Right, you had the Legion of Boom dominate their first Super Bowl against Peyton Manning and the Broncos. When the Broncos had that historical offensive season. The next year, as we all know, they play by the goal line. But that's what you think of Russell Wilson. Think about it. Russell Wilson's inconsistent play, maybe even if you want to say subpar play, more times than not, that had a big part in the Legion of Boom breaking up. If anything, you could say he was the sole reason why that Legion of Boom team, we won't call them a dynasty because they didn't win one, but they were building towards a dynasty. They were a budding dynasty. The reason why it never came to fruition, the reason why it broke up maybe earlier than it should, was you can make the argument was because of Russell Wilson. The defense was fed up with the way Russ was treated. They thought Pete Carroll and the offensive staff was babying Russell Wilson, not holding him to the highest standard that the defense was held to. And one by one, players were traded, players were cut, players weren't given contracts on the defensive end. And if they spoke up about Russ, if they complained about the way Russ played, sooner rather than later, they'd be out. They wouldn't be playing. And Pete Carroll smartly chose the quarterback. So now you look at that, right? Being the reason why your team breaks up, the defense believes you were the reason why you lost one Super Bowl. They don't take you seriously. They have no respect for you. Now you transform that. The Seahawks made the transition from a defensive run-heavy team to a pass-happy, led by their quarterback team, where now Russell Wilson is the reason why they win games. Forget the reason why they don't lose. He's the reason, the flat-out reason why they are winning games. They've gone from a defensive stalwart team to an offensive juggernaut. And this is despite the fact that he had a pretty crappy O-line for most of his time in Seattle. His weapons only really just last year started increasing, right? Tyler Lockett has really come onto the scene. DK Metcalf is a lot better than anyone would have expected. At least I would expect. I should say that. DK Metcalf is a lot better than I would have expected him to be. Much more dominant. Greg Olson's a solid tight end right now. But he's elevated his play to the elite of the elite. He has risen to the upper echelon of quarterback play right now. Like the 1A to Patrick Mahomes. To where, to me, no other quarterback has made this transition from not bad, but just not trusted, almost viewed as a liability. Right? Because that's almost essentially what he was. The defense viewed Russell Wilson in the Legion of Boom as a liability. Read stories. Sports Illustrated did a great deep dive talking to defensive players in the Seahawks during the Legion of Boom time and why they think that that team was never a dynasty, why they think that team never won more than one Super Bowl. A lot of blame is pointed towards Russell Wilson for being a liability, one, and also because the coaches unfairly treated him. They babied him, essentially. So he went from a liability in their eyes to the MVP. And it's not really talked about a lot. Right now, we rush to judgment, and we come to judgment so much, so quickly, that if Russell Wilson was drafted in 2016, 2017, he would already be on another team. Fans would want him gone. He wouldn't have the patience or the time to develop into the quarterback he did now. Should the Eagles start exploring a future without Carson Wentz? They already drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round. Don't think that was an accident. But for me, watching the Eagles yesterday, watching them so far through this season, it's not time to move on. Carson Wentz is not the reason. Now, he hasn't played well, and I'll get to those in a second here. But there are much bigger issues with this Eagles team, and specifically their offense, as to why they are struggling. They're not putting up points the way they should, and why that's led to Carson Wentz struggling so far. Number one, their offensive line has just been banged up, and that is really hamstringing this entire offense. So the left tackle, Andre Dillard, on IR to start the season with a torn bicep. One of their best guards, all-pro guard, Brandon Brooks, before the season even started, ruptured his Achilles, out for the year. So now they have two young guards playing at the same time. Not ideal. Lane Johnson, their all-pro right tackle, missed the first game, has a dinged-up ankle. He might, that might be one of those injuries that last all season long. So this offensive line is a makeshift offensive line. Obviously, there are injuries. And now you have Jason Peters, an old Jason Peters, brought back to play guard, is playing left tackle and getting beat. And then all this adds up to you're not giving Carson Wentz time. He's been sacked 11 times in 3 games, going back to that 8-sack performance in Week 1 against Washington. And when he's not getting sacked, guy's running for his life. He was the second leading rusher yesterday for a reason. Because he was forced to roll out of the pocket and forced to make plays with his legs because he's dropped back at the ball, and boom, there'd be a Bengals defender right in his face. Boom, there's someone trying to rush him up the middle, and he has to sprint out of the pocket to make a play. He was the second leading rusher yesterday, not by design. I think they called, if I remember, 1 or 2 zone read plays that meant for Carson Wentz to keep the ball. He ran out of necessity yesterday. And that's going to be a trend all season long because his offensive line is killing their offense. Not giving them time to throw some deep shots. and changing the entire philosophy of the offense. Speaking of philosophy, this goes to Doug Pederson, their head coach. Because, yes, the offensive line is bad. They're injured, they're banged up, and they're not giving Wentz the proper time to find his receivers. But their aggressiveness on offense is gone. Their confidence on offense is gone. It's really waned. And that's on Doug Pederson. Remember when he was hired back in 2016? Aggressiveness was Doug Pederson's calling card. That's what he was really known for. And now, as the years have gone on, the play calling has become more passive. He's playing not to lose. Yesterday is the perfect example. There were plenty of drives that stalled out. There were safe passes called underneath screens, wide receiver screens at the line of scrimmage, dump offs. But overtime, against the Bengals, Doug Pederson and the Eagles played for a long field goal. When Carson Wentz made that nice throw to Zach Ertz down the sideline to get them just on the brink of field goal territory, all of a sudden this Eagles offense just stopped. They basically should have just took 3 knees and get the ball down, or get the clock down, I should say, to the final seconds where they can kick a walk-off field goal. That's essentially what this offense did. It was a 59-yard field goal that essentially Doug Pederson said, all right, that's good enough. We're gonna take it here. If we make it, we win. If we lose, what are you gonna do? But we're not gonna get much closer. And then penalty, you still can go for a 64-yard field goal. Improbable, but you still have a chance. You still have a chance. Bypass it, kicked a punt, or I should say punted it, excuse me, to end the game. Punted it to end overtime. So you look at the aggressiveness and how it waned. That is true in stats. 4th down attempts. The number of times that Doug Pederson has gone for a 4th down has regressed every single year since he started. 2016, the Eagles went for it on 4th down the most in the NFL. They were the number 1 team in going for it on 4th down. Doug Pederson in his first year set the tone early, said we were going to be aggressive, we were going to push the envelope. And that led to success. So number 1 in 2016. Dropped to number 2 in 2017, but still really good. The year they went to the Super Bowl, the year they won the Super Bowl. They were aggressive. They put defenses in some bad spots. And they would go for it anywhere on the field. They did the same thing in 2018. So you have a top 2 team going for it on 4th down the first 3 years that Doug Pederson was there. Dropped to number 6 last year, and now so far 13th this year, and include in that aggressiveness being very passive in overtime, playing not to lose. So that lack of aggressive play calling is obvious here, at least in the 4th down attempts, and it's hurt the offense. You're not pushing the envelope. You're not dictating the pace. It's in playing not to lose, which is not a strategy, because as we've seen, ask Dan Quinn, how playing not to lose has worked out for him. Ask Jason Garrett, how playing not to lose has worked out for him. So far, it's not worked out for Doug Pederson when he plays not to lose. Now, to be fair, Carson Wentz has been more inconsistent this year than ever. And I think yesterday's game, was the perfect example of that. He's had some great throws. He made a great read right before halftime, threw a gorgeous touchdown pass. He engineered the game-tying touchdown drive late in the 4th quarter, ran it himself to tie the game, send the game to overtime. In overtime, that last drive in overtime that they had, he made a gorgeous pass down the sideline to Zach Ertz that put them right on the fringe. Again, very, very, very fringe of field goal range. But he gave your team a chance to at least get in range to attempt to kick a field goal before, again, the Eagles and Doug Pederson played not to lose, got super conservative, and then ended up punting the ball. But he also had some bad throws. He threw an awful interception right to the Bengals defender in the 3rd quarter. Just awful, inexcusable. Basically threw right to his chest. Like he was the intended receiver. He had Miles Sanders later on in the game, wide open on a wheel route down the sideline, overthrew it. These are the throws you can't miss. You can't. He has 6 interceptions now through the first 3 games. Each of the last 3 seasons, he's had 7 interceptions each season. 7 in 2019, 7 in 2018, 7 in 2017. He has 6 already through 3 games.